Welcome, everybody. This is Deep Dive Water and Homelessness. So very quickly, here are some guidelines for this Zoom event. All participants, please keep yourselves muted and your video cameras off and keep them that way for the rest of the event. If you have any questions or needs from me, you can just type them into the chat. We will have about 20 minutes of Q&A with the student researchers, and I encourage you to type in your questions right when you think of them. During the presentation, you don't have to wait until the Q&A portion, and then I'll compile those questions for the end. Now, if everyone could take 1 minute to type their full name into the chat, this is like our sign-in sheet for the day, and I'd really appreciate knowing who's here instead of just seeing your Zoom handles. The Center for Environmental Inquiry at Sonoma State University is where I work, and I am so excited to be your host today. My name is Carrie Whittinger, and I want to tell you about what the center is. So the center mobilizes faculty, students, and community to solve complex environmental challenges, turning education into action. Everybody can get involved across all university disciplines and sectors of society. We have training programs for students and community member naturalists and those interested in land management. We host classes and researchers on site, provide data, engage partner organizations in student research, have student internships and jobs, and run public event programs that are funded entirely by donors. The center manages Fairfield Osborne Preserve, which encompasses 450 acres on Sonoma Mountain, as well as Galbraith Wildlands Preserve, 3,670 acres in Yorkville, Mendocino County. And pre-pandemic, we held our public events on site. We want to acknowledge, honor, and make visible that our preserves are the ancestral lands of Native peoples, and encourage you to learn more at cei.sonoma.edu. We hope you will choose to get environmentally ready with us as we tackle the greatest environmental challenges in history. Today, we will hear from 3 teams of student researchers who've undertaken research with Rising Waters, a new initiative between SSU, Sonoma Water, Russian River Watershed Association, and the North Coast Water Quality Control Board that engages students and faculty in meaningful improvement in water-related sustainability and resilience challenges of the North Bay. During its first year, Rising Waters is addressing the nexus of homelessness and watersheds. Recent increases in homelessness are testing the fabric of North Bay communities and the agencies, governments, and organizations that serve them. These are complex challenges that require multi-organizational, multidisciplinary solutions based on the best information available. Rising Waters is an opportunity to use the power of interdisciplinary study to develop viable solutions and to enhance public awareness of the complexity of these issues. The student researchers have prepared 8-minute videos for you, each describing their work so far on the Rising Waters project. After the videos, they'll be available to answer your questions. But please go ahead, as I said, type your questions in the chat as you think of them during the presentation. Professor David Sewell in SSU's Department of Political Science led a 4-person student team to answer this question. How can GIS mapping tools be leveraged to understand the intersection of water issues and homelessness, such as placement of trash receptacles and toilets? Today, we will hear from Jamie Thompson, who'll be joined for the Q&A portion by Matt Rome, both graduate students working toward their master's in public administration. This project has taught Jamie that understanding issues of homelessness can be greatly impacted through technology. And similarly, Matt has learned that managing homelessness encampments near waterways can be made easier by leveraging technology like GIS.
Hi, everyone. Today, I will be introducing our case study, which is on question 1 of the Rising Waters project through Sonoma State University's Center for Environmental Inquiry. I am Jamie Frymuth Thompson, conducting this project with Nadine Magallanes, Matt Rome, and Samantha Stevens. For our focus, we are working with Sonoma State Masters in Public Administration professor Dr. David Sewell to identify where are resources needed to reduce water quality impacts from people experiencing homelessness. We plan to conduct our research through 4 sections, including use of publicly available tools such as the Geographic Information System collecting water data, collecting homelessness data, and identifying opportunity costs. As a background, I am Jamie Frymuth Thompson, a graduate student in the MPA program. My undergraduate research was completed at University of California, Santa Barbara in cultural anthropology and environmental studies. I have over 5 years in nonprofit management, coordinating employment for adults with significant disabilities. I was interested in participating in this project as a Sonoma County native, interested in both human services and environmental issues and how these intersect. This project identified a community problem that incorporated my past educational experiences with my current career path. I'm excited to participate in this project and to observe the collaboration around these intersecting challenges of environmental preservation and human services. My role in the project has been to collect and import data for the homeless populations. We initially looked into data systems available through the steering committee and found that if we could identify consistent sources of information, we could input this information into Geographic Information Systems, or a GIS system. We looked into QGIS, a free and public information mapping system. Nadine and Professor Soul worked to install the software, learn to use it, and begin importing photos into the system, testing GPS coordinates built into existing technology, such as smartphones. We initially looked into data systems and wanted to focus on where people were living in riparian areas and asked, can we use spatial correlations between populations experiencing homelessness and environmental variables to accurately predict the distribution of people experiencing homelessness along waterways? To do this, our data needs would include distribution of homeless encampments, distribution of homeless individuals, brush and cover, accessible restrooms, overpasses and bridges, potable water for washing and drinking, needle exchange programs, and courthouses and jails. We wanted all of this information in a single location and to be as consistent and accurate as possible. As an overview of the preliminary findings on homelessness data, there were some initial unanticipated barriers developed around ethical data boundaries. We found that while some data was made easily available, a comparison of data access proved to be very limited. I was very surprised to learn that data is protected information due to violence occurring against populations experiencing homelessness. And while populations may be highly visible to the public, displaying this information could instigate violence and ethical debates on the morality of photographing individuals in crisis. These barriers led to some unexpected and very inspired conversations about the language and intentions of the existing data. I look to develop these data barrier questions and to present solutions to the steering committee while approaching the most sensitive and ethical way to obtain and utilize this data into the GIS system. With input from Linnea Sieberlich-Wheeler and Professor David Soul, our suggestion was to begin with a change in language, to develop procedures, to obtain input, and develop a common goal. Some of the positive outcomes of this preliminary research is the realization that high-quality data leads to informed decision-making, prioritization, increased compliance, and better outcomes for the individuals experiencing a crisis. We can identify barriers and develop specific objectives to improve and mitigate trauma. Some of the negative outcomes are within how we choose to display and utilize the data. Data transparency potentially results in controversial ethical implications, such as endangering individuals currently experiencing trauma or negatively influencing the perception of other people, such as confirmation bias, or may lead the public to interact with people in ways that influence their behaviors. Our initial suggestion from these findings was to obtain existing data that we need to overcome these barriers and to develop and identify outcomes and project goals within the group and to the greater steering community. By developing person-centered language and recognizing bias, by limiting data sharing to protect confidentiality, by broadening the perspective of locations to limit usage of data, or removing sensitive information that may contribute to negative outcomes, all while collaborating within the time constraints, would help us to approach this data system in an ethical and meaningful way. Matt Rome has also been working to research data collection and has identified similar accuracy and disclosure issues in obtaining specific data. Matt's findings included questions such as who is already taking responsibility for encampment identification and how is this data being measured? Where is this data stored? And who is it shared with? Nadine has taken a deep dive into learning the software of the GIS system and testing the accuracy of our uploaded photos from our research team. Nadine's findings included learning usage of a public tool that is underutilized due to its complexity, and learning to match tracking data to the smartphone photographs. Samantha Stevens is focusing on pulling water data into the QGIS system. She has learned how to input data from her smartphone into the system and to track the accuracy. In summary, we intend to continue to obtain imagery data for public restrooms using public trash receptacles, the quality and quantity, known public homeless encampments, such as highly visible areas experiencing long-term use, such as Olive Park and Santa Rosa Creek on the Santa Rosa Greenway, Spring Creek, Doyle Park in Santa Rosa, and the city of Guerneville. Imagery data is also sought for waterways, including Santa Rosa Creek. All of these images are then introduced and intended to be ethically used to identify locations in need of additional resources such as trash receptacles. My team have found ourselves humbled and inspired by this project and feel that this research matters because our collaborative efforts to seek improvement conditions of the local environment and basic human rights for individuals experiencing homelessness. Data is a valuable resource to assist in the implementation of this project, and providing real images of our waterways and the stress that these areas are holding is a language that can speak across cultures and help to identify areas in the greatest need. For more information on our research team and project, please reach out to Professor Soul or check out the Rising Waters website. Thank you.
Dr. Armand Galinsky, Korbel Professor of Wine Business at SSU, supported 2 graduate students in the School of Business and Economics. Itze Peña Andrade and Lauren Hart investigated the research question, what are the legal and political barriers to providing toilets to people experiencing homelessness? This has taught Itze about the scale of homelessness within Sonoma County and the organizations working to address it, and helped Lauren appreciate how collaboration and teamwork are key to making effective change.
Everyone, today we'll be introducing our case study, which is on the barriers to providing public restrooms. My name is Lauren Hart.
And I'm Itze Peña Andrade, and we're both graduate students in Sonoma State University's Professional MBA program. We are conducting research for a case study in collaboration with the Rising Waters Initiative through Sonoma State University's Center for Environmental Inquiry. For our case study focus, our team is working with Sonoma State University's School of Business and Economics professor Armand Galinsky to research and identify potential social, political, and legal barriers to providing restrooms or preventing the closure of public restrooms for people experiencing that are living in or near riparian areas.
My microphone is
To quickly introduce ourselves and give backgrounds as it relates to this project, I am Itze, and I previously attended Sonoma State University, where I received a science degree in business administration. Professionally, I have over 10 years experience in the wine industry, primarily in hospitality, winemaking, where I work as a technician and quality control, planning, and I'm currently the community marketing coordinator. In regard to the Rising Waters Initiative, I was interested in participating in this project because I have lived in Sonoma County my whole life, most of it in Guerneville, and have grown up along the river. I have seen firsthand just how much it has changed throughout the years, and this research project brought forth new learning opportunities and a topic I didn't have too much prior knowledge in. I also thought it would be the perfect opportunity to pursue this as my MBA capstone project, as I was always open to learning more and was excited for the challenge.
Hello, again, my name is Lauren. I currently work full-time at Sonoma State as a facility specialist for the university library, in addition to attending as a graduate student. I have over 7 years experience within the field of facilities management at higher educational institutions. And like Itzy, I also grew up locally in Sonoma County along the Russian River, but near Healdsburg. I was interested in participating in this project as part of our capstone because it seemed like a great opportunity to combine my position in facilities with my current studies in strategic management, while also drawing back on my bachelor's degree, which was in environmental systems from UC San Diego. I'm excited to participate in this research with Rising Waters and in their mission to find solutions to these intersecting challenges such as homelessness and pollution in our watershed. I was also interested to learn more about homelessness in Sonoma County from a leadership perspective, to learn more about how our local leaders were approaching this complex social issue. So diving into our research, we initially looked at the entire background of sanitation, homelessness, water quality, and quickly found a wealth of information. However, we decided we really needed to narrow our scope to provide strategic analysis that was relevant for Sonoma County within a more local context. So we started looking specifically into implementations that had been done previously within the city of Santa Rosa. Those implementations have served as almost mini case studies within our case study that offer an exploration of pros, cons, lessons learned from each. The methods that we chose to look specifically into were portable toilets, which are like porta potties or chemical toilets, mobile shower restroom trailers such as Clean Start or Mobile Ministries, which are operated locally, the Portland Loo, which is a type of permanent installation with a unique design. It was actually recently installed last year in downtown Santa Rosa. Also, different alternative methods, such as the expansion of hours at existing public restrooms. So this was an option that had been explored as part of the implementation of the Portland Loo. And then also the potential costs of doing nothing. So there's a social cost, obviously, in terms of lack of sanitation, environmental cost in cleanup and loss of use for recreational or tourism areas along our beaches. And then there's a monetary cost in terms of vulnerability for the city and county to different lawsuits that may arise. We are also attempting to distill and assess feedback from various stakeholders. So homeless service providers, local government, environmental organizations, business owners, and the general public. In order to tie our case study back into our MBA capstone, we're also performing cost benefit, stakeholder, and macroeconomic forces analysis in order to generate strategic options and recommendations for local leadership. And we also plan to try to identify and develop strategies that can prioritize potential areas for effective toilet placements in order to best serve individuals experiencing homelessness. And this includes an assessment of the need for temporary versus permanent placements.
So what have we discovered in our research thus far? Our research has led us to understanding the gravity of this particular challenge that is faced around the world. In Sonoma County alone, 62% of people experiencing homelessness remain unsheltered and lack basic sanitation. Throughout our research process, we have both heard various concerns regarding whether restroom implementations should be provided where encampments are unsanctioned, whether they are temporary or permanent, what is permissible given the particulars of the location, and what the social, political, and legal challenges are to getting buy-in for. Our case study encompasses a wide range of intersecting topics as they relate to restrooms. The first being homelessness in Sonoma County, including its scale, limited services budget, and the application of the Housing First model. Also, fecal contamination in the Russian River watershed. And legal considerations such as the Clean Water Act, the HERF Act, and Martin versus Boise. And also complicating external factors such as the COVID-19 pandemic, wildfires, the floods, and other unprecedented events. And lastly, the human right to water. Along the way, we have both encountered particular challenges in our research process. For me, as we progress with our research, I found there to be some challenges faced with gathering budgeting information and properly understanding how all the organizations involved work together to address this complex social issue, while simultaneously striving to raise awareness to this prevalent issue being faced in our society and around the world.
Yes, similarly, I felt that this project has been very challenging just due to the depth and variety of prerequisite knowledge that I felt we needed to first try to understand and approach the issue, and my very limited understanding that I had personally going into the project at the beginning of the semester. In our research thus far, we've seen many of the complexities to providing homeless services, but we have learned a lot about the various resources that are available in Sonoma County and the organizations doing this important work. ITSE and I have both been inspired to see the energy and commitment of everyone we've encountered thus far in our research. Everyone has been so helpful, encouraging, and seems generally committed to working together to address these challenges. So why does this research matter? Providing restrooms goes beyond just convenience and comfort. While the implementations would benefit the entire general public and obviously our local environment by preventing pollution into our waterways, they would also significantly improve access to water and sanitation, which is a basic human right for thousands of unsheltered individuals in Sonoma County. So thank you guys very much for listening to our presentation. If you're interested in learning more about our project or Rising Waters Initiative, feel free to go to the web link posted on the slide. Thank you.
Thank you.
SSU philosophy professor Megan Burke worked with a team of 3 undergraduate students in pursuit of better aligning the universe of investments, commitments, and resources being applied across sectors to address the nexus of water quality and homelessness. Psychology major Kamil Babida learned about the lasting impact of public policy and the commitment, stamina, and political education necessary to address homelessness and water quality. Philosophy major Deborah Barrera, with a concentration in pre-law and ethics, now values the importance of connection between resources, community, and organizations, and the importance of finding a permanent solution to issues like homelessness and water quality. Lauren Williams, who is majoring in both biology and philosophy with a concentration in pre-law and ethics, took away from this project just how important it is to understand and become educated on homelessness and politics on the local level.
Hi, my name is Deborah Barrera, and I'm a 4th-year philosophy major here at SSU. I'm one of the 3 student researchers working on the Rising Water Project 3. I'm working on this project because of the courses I've taken with our faculty advisor for this project, Dr. Megan Burke, and we're working with 2 other students, Lauren Williams and Kamil Babida. Our team has been asked to address the research question located on the left of the screen. And in order to clarify our task, we first operationalized the phrase community resources as those who have made investments, commitments, and resources to addressing water quality and homelessness. The initial question raises a lot of important questions, which we think need to be needed to consider in order to best address the 2 significant social problems. For instance, if we don't have a strong and clear sense of what the connection between water quality and homelessness is, then we take the best action in relation to these issues and their intersection. So far, my research has been investigating the first initial question. In addition to talking directly with people at county agencies, city representatives, and individuals from local organizations, I've been tracking data to ultimately create a knowledge map of who is who across the county. Because there are so many stakeholders involved in working on water quality and homelessness in Sonoma County, a knowledge map will strengthen coordination efforts. It will not only provide a fast track for organizations to find others with whom they can share knowledge and resources, but it would also help SSU continue to connect students and faculty to the community. A big part of our research has consisted of our team reaching out to as many organizations and charities that deal directly with homelessness or water quality in Sonoma County. We've asked all of our participants similar questions that consist of their current resources or labor, their funding, and what they would identify as the biggest barrier around issues of homelessness and or water quality. There are many common factors we found when meeting with the participants that I have listed in this slide. As a team, our goal is to identify all the common problems and common solutions various organizations and charities in Sonoma County can relate to, and hope that this alleviates some of the disconnect, if any, that they may feel from other organizations, charities, and community. Our team aims to create a mapping that outlines all the resources there are in Sonoma County regarding homelessness and or water quality, which we find would be beneficial for those experiencing homelessness and lack of access to water quality, but also beneficial to the organizations and charities in Sonoma County. While the knowledge map is important, our team has also been working on how to best frame the problems that arise at the intersection of water quality and homelessness as social problems. That tells us something about the value of our community as a whole. Because of the way myths of homelessness clouds people's understanding of homelessness, it's likely to think of people experiencing homelessness as polluters of waterways, rather than victims who suffer from the absence of access to clean drinking water, sanitation, and basic hygiene. While it's true that encampments by waterways do impact the quality of our waterways, our team insists on the ethical importance of human rights to housing and clean water. It's likely that we need a societal shift from thinking of housing and clean water as something one must earn, but something that we all are owed and deserve. I'll now pass it on to one of my teammates who will talk more about the problems and solutions to them. Thank you for your time.
Hi, my name is Kamil Babida, and I'm a first-year psychology student at Sonoma State. I'm going to discuss my research on NIMBYism as a barrier to addressing water quality and homelessness and the importance of political education. NIMBY is an acronym that stands for Not in My Backyard, and it's an attitude that is representative of the approach some people have towards homelessness. To the right, you can see that there's a 3-stage NIMBY cycle. It begins at the youth stage, where residents express outrage towards nearby encampments or homeless shelters, and this is usually in irrational terms. The maturity stage involves 2 sides of supporters that bring the debate up to the public forum, and their concerns are expressed more objectively and rationally. And we currently stand at the old age stage, which is long, costly, and involves political and legal professionals, and a demand for more resources and services for people experiencing homelessness. Most commonly, NIMBYism refers to how new sites for affordable housing, shelters, or group homes are unwanted or somehow deemed inappropriate by existing community residents. Proponents of NIMBYism are concerned about their own quality of life and relation to the surrounding environment, but this is often accompanied with anti-homelessness sentiments. Complaints about seeing homelessness may lead to sweeps and at times can further dislocate people experiencing homelessness from the communities that they live in. In relation to the Rising Waters initiative, this attitude is a barrier to securing water quality for people experiencing homelessness and to ending homelessness. In order to mitigate this obstacle of NIMBYism, we must implement political education. Political education aims to develop civic competency and can influence the public to care about people experiencing homelessness in an ethical and informed manner. Action is necessary to change our circumstances, but to act in the most respectful manner of people experiencing homelessness, we must address them as people who are obligated to shelter and quality of life. We must also acknowledge that we must treat the problem of homelessness at all levels, personally, socially, economically, and through policy. In challenging NIMBYism through political education, we are combating community opposition to homelessness and its intersection with water quality. Here, we must utilize a strength-based approach where we see potential in people. It's crucial that we uphold the idea that everyone has the right to housing, no matter what the circumstances are. Political education helps to align the universe of resources we have that can end homelessness, secure water quality for all, and in turn, protect our waterways. Commitment to action can be achieved through public education and engagement.
So before we start, I would like to say some things about me. My name is Lauren Williams. I am a Los Angeles native, and I am a current freshman here at Sonoma State University as a biology and philosophy double major. So water quality and permanent housing. People experiencing homelessness are disproportionately at risk of dehydration and heat-related illnesses due to their time spent outdoors, and many have limited access to adequate water and sanitation. A solution to this problem would be permanent supportive housing. By investing time into permanent supportive housing, we can push to lower the poor water quality and solving water insecurity in Sonoma County. Investments in permanent supportive housing have helped decrease the number of those experiencing chronic homelessness by 8% since 2007. If we do not support permanent supportive housing, we are just managing homelessness and denying those who experience homelessness basic human rights. So the current projects that are going on right now in California are for the 2021 proposal. Governor Gavin Newsom proposed a one-time $750 million deposit into newly established California Access to Housing Services Fund. And the state also implemented the Project Room Key, which is securing thousands of isolation rooms in hotels and motels for extremely vulnerable individuals experiencing homelessness to help flatten the curve and preserve hospital capacity during COVID-19. In Sonoma County, we are doing the Creek Patrol for protection of waterways, cleanup for health and safety issues, CAHOOTS, which is crisis access, helping out on the streets, affordable housing by the pipeline, homelessness services such as COAST, rapid rehousing, share, and etc. How we can improve and evolve. Bring diversity in our committees. It is important to bring those from different backgrounds / committees, such as the Water Board, in order to solve homelessness. Reach out to community members and think about the bigger picture in terms of who / homelessness affects. Another way is permanent supportive housing. It helps focus on solving, not managing homelessness. It is a cost-effective and impactful housing intervention for those experiencing homelessness and values the right to clean water.
Thank you so much for those video students. It is now time for the Q&A session. So if everybody who is a student researcher could please turn your video on and unmute yourself to get ready for questions. It's great to see all your faces. Okay, let's get started with one question that I'm going to ask all of the student teams. So if I will just start with team 1, then 2, then 3, and if each student could take a turn. Real quickly, what is one thing you experienced or learned during the course of this project that surprised you?
Well, I would say that I had no idea that the data collections would be so controversial and really lead to such powerful conversations. I was really surprised to get a decline for the data initially from some of the agencies, but then I was really pleasantly surprised at the level of responsibility and sensitivity that they were taking in their humanistic approach and why they were declining the information. Data in general seems to promise objectivity, but I think instead it's really subject to the multiple perspective looking at it and assigning an analysis to it. And so that's one of the things that really surprised me, that I was very pleasantly surprised about.
Yeah, and also in line with the data collection, I was pretty surprised on how many people were already doing something like this. There's a lot of efforts already being made to try to track these on an individual municipality level. So I found that really interesting.
As far as in our research, I'd say one of the things that really surprised me was the scale of the problem, both with homelessness and with access to sanitation locally. I think it's something that we'd heard a lot about recently, but that I hadn't actually seen the numbers on. And then just looking into it and finding how underrepresented the access to sanitation is within the United States, and how it's not really being quantified at a wide scale and needs to be.
And from I didn't really know about that was done yearly was the homeless census report that's conducted yearly, and unfortunately was postponed last year because of COVID. No, it was just interesting to see the different parties involved to make sure that these reports are done on a time, and the best way to represent everyone by making sure our accounts are all accounted for, and really seeing the scale of the problem and what we can do to help find solutions for them.
Lauren Williams, would you be able to give us an answer to that question as well?
Oh, yes. I was very surprised about how many previous policies were initially implemented, but shut down, that were actually pretty good. Like a couple policies that was starting about permanent supportive housing, but wasn't getting enough funding, or a lot of out of party people were denying. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Any other members from Team 3?
I was surprised about all these similar answers we had from the people we interviewed. We met with a lot of different like organization leaders or people from the council and stuff. We were emailing back and forth. So a lot of them had similar problems they were running into. And there's just so many organizations and stuff to keep up with in Sonoma County. I'm not from Sonoma County, but there's so many there. But that's good to see. And yeah, it's good. They all have similar stuff we can connect them to.
And Samantha, is there anything you wanted to add?
I think my team pretty much covered it. A lot of the resources I used in my own master's project became applicable to this project, which it was really great to see that it actually had a real world application. Not always you can, it's not always that that is the case. So it made me feel really good about, working towards something that mattered.
Great. All right, let's dig into some of these questions that people are asking. So again, please go ahead and type any questions you have into the chat and I will ask them out loud to our team members. So first off, this one I think is best directed to Team 2. What are the barriers in addition to cost?
Sure, I'll start and Itzy can jump in if she has others. There are a lot of barriers to providing public restrooms. I think the first that we encountered was just public resistance. We've seen a lot recently in terms of like the Portland Loo implementation in downtown Santa Rosa. That was really opposed by local businesses who felt like it didn't really fit into the kind of the aesthetic of the downtown area and that it wasn't needed because there were public restrooms in that area. Of course, those restrooms weren't available 24/7, so it didn't quite serve that need. We've also seen resistance from just the general public, mostly echoing a lot of myths that persist about people experiencing homelessness and that providing restrooms might attract crime or just different public nuisances in the area. And then as far as other barriers, I'd say limited data on the water quality side. So there's a lot of anecdotal evidence that obviously encampments are causing water quality issues in the rivershed, but there's not a lot of hard data to correlate those two. It's very difficult to say that this fecal contamination is exactly caused by this one point source. So there's opportunities that exist to kind of strengthen those arguments to help lower the barriers, I think, to implementation on that side.
Great. This question is for Team 3. Can you speak a little bit more about the need for less strict funding? So if anyone from Team 3 wants to take that.
Yeah, so with almost everyone we had a discussion with, interview through Zoom or email, there is, they've explained that if it's a voluntary like donation as in not from like the state or anything like that, just regular people, community members donating, then they can do what they need with that money. So, you know, what they find more urgent or something, you could do anything that they want with that money. There's not really any restrictions. But if it comes from the state funding, county funding and stuff, they have strict guidelines on what they can and can't do with that money. So that's what they've shared with us. That's some of the research we've collected.
All right, next one is for team 1. What are the benefits of using images as data points on the GIS maps?
Hey there. I think that using maps is one of the modern benefits of technology, and using images really helps to connect us easily. And giving us access to instant information can really cover a lot of ground. An image is worth 1,000 words.
Yeah, it's definitely nice using some of the technology that's out there where you can just pinpoint a location and somebody else can pull that app up, highlight that location and see exactly where whatever they're bringing to the attention of everyone is located. You know, there's many different things that you could be pointing out. So the image can help just make it exactly sure what you're trying to convey.
Definitely. There's definitely less room for interpretation between different users. It's kind of a definite, this is what I'm looking for, this is what I'm looking at situation.
Thank you for those. Now, this one is for team 2, and it's an interesting question. Kim asks, who would maintain the public restrooms? Nobody wants to use a dirty bathroom.
Yeah, so we've seen a few different methods. It really depends on the implementation. So usually like a porta potty service is going to be maintained via contract with whatever company they're rented through. Then the permanent installations like Portland Loo are often maintained by the city staff members. They have maintenance staff. There's also opportunity for volunteers. So we found with the mobile shower trailer units, a lot of times they're operated and maintained by volunteer staff. But yeah, it's definitely a concern. You want to make sure that they don't create more problems by either overflowing and spilling or just being unusable and ineffective. So yeah.
Next question is for team 3. Were there any interviews conducted with people who are homeless or have been?
Unfortunately, there wasn't. Due to COVID, there wasn't any in-person interviews like that, but I'm sure we can work on that going forward.
And another question for team 3, or for any group, what current policies, approaches did you see happening by the state or county in solving homelessness that offers promise?
I think a lot of organizations aim to also find, they're all in agreement that there has to be, it'd be better if there was permanent housing, so not just something temporary where it's just for a few months. It's if permanent housing is the end goal. And there's also referral programs, so many different programs where if you need help getting an ID or need access to a phone or something like that, that's all available. It's just we're trying to find a way to where everyone can know about that.
Back up to team 1 here. And it sounds like you observed some obstacles while conducting the research around data flow and consistency. So what are some ways that we can collaborate to improve those specific outcomes?
I think that's a great question to ask, and it's very important. I think in order to obtain synchronicity, having matching objectives that are really intended to improve the lives of these people and protecting waterways is something everybody really wants to achieve, and the collaboration really is key here. Working with a group, we found that we could potentially cover a lot of ground, and the majority of us have instant access to smartphones that can contribute a tremendous amount of technology information.
Some of the obstacles I found were kind of what I said before that surprised me is The homeless encampments along the river are already being monitored and tracked by different municipalities. And it's interesting because Rohnert Park has their own way to do it. Santa Rosa has their own way to do it. And I didn't get a chance to get to all the other water departments, but I imagine they all have their own procedures too. So when we were kind of looking at developing the software, the obstacles I was running into is trying to think of how we would field this new software, and or if there may already be some techniques out there that we could adopt for everyone. So that was a kind of neat obstacle when it comes to data collection, is not like the barriers, socio-political, but like who is actually going to be typing it in to the map, and how do we standardize that procedure across the county was kind of interesting obstacle to look at.
This is maybe the third time that I've asked a question where I felt like other teams might have some input and may have insight. And so one question just in general for everybody is about any collaboration that's happened between the three research teams. Have you helped each other, and how has that made your projects more successful?
I think that the individuals on the steering committee have been extremely helpful, and it's been really nice to have a lot of collaboration between all the different perspectives and different positions that make up such a diverse group. So yes, there's been a lot of collaboration, and it's been really helpful to really understand the issue.
And the committee as well has been really helpful with all the information they have been able to provide. A lot of members here know that we have a file that we're all kind of just putting a lot of data in, and we're able to kind of see everyone else's questions and their data presented as well, that we're able to share and use to collaborate in that sense.
If I remember correctly, there was a meeting or two that one of the teams planned on going to, and others also ended up attending and getting insight into their projects. So just wanted to see if there was anything that anyone else wanted to say besides that, but I liked watching that process. So the next question is for team 3. Is there data on who, gender, for example, is trying to solve these problems? I ask because the panel is primarily female. Does this indicate a bias toward helping the homeless? Interesting question, Kim. Thank you.
It is an interesting question. I don't know if it's bias, but you definitely get different answers. You speak to like it's just different perspectives. You speak to someone who's male rather than female, but there've been plenty of people we've interviewed that are male. But yeah, it's good to hear both perspectives, but I would agree there's definitely more women on the project, that I would say.
Like was said before, I'm getting my master's there at Sonoma State Public Administration, and it seems like males, I'm not sure the exact numbers, but it seems like females are the majority in the master's program too. I'm not sure the correlation there, but it might be more indicative of the makeup of the program instead of necessarily male or female priorities towards homelessness, maybe.
Fascinating. Okay, so this is a question that anyone can take on. What was the biggest challenge each team faced in getting information? Just getting information, or misconceptions, or lack of awareness in general?
I'll go. I think one of the biggest challenges that ITSE and I faced in collecting our data was looking particularly into the financial data. While a lot of it was available public information as far as city or county budgets, it was really difficult to get a level of granularity as to what specific funds were available for restroom implementation. So you can see kind of an overall umbrella of funding sources and what's being provided by the state or federally, but it's very difficult to see how much of that really could be allocated or flexed towards this kind of an implementation.
If
And
there's
something else,
yeah.
oh, sorry. Something else for our team would have been great would have been to have had a voice for someone who is currently experiencing homelessness, but given COVID and all the regulations there, we just didn't really have an opportunity to be able to do that and really get the voice heard in that sense.
And that actually brings up another question somebody had, which is, how do you think you would have approached your project differently before COVID-19, or if that wasn't a concern right now during your research process? Anything from perhaps team 3?
I think it would have been great to be able to meet with people in person, to probably volunteer ourselves in person. Like someone asked earlier, interview homeless people in person or people in programs, how their referral process was, what obstacles they ran into when trying to get into a program. Was there a wait list? I think that would have been really great for us and for our research.
Any other thoughts on that from the other teams?
Yeah, Itzy and I had thought about that originally and wanted to make sure we incorporated that perspective within our paper. It was a lot harder during COVID to have that opportunity, but the Continuum of Care Board does feature one representative who is a person with lived experience. So we were able to hear a little bit about her perspectives on the issue. And then also we found some good research from street medicine teams where they had collected one-on-one interviews that offered a little bit of insight into perspective of people living on the streets. But yeah, it would have been nice to be able to collect some of that data locally within Sonoma County.
And a quick question about the use of the term NIMBY. One of our participants says it seems to put a population on defense. Is it really something that you recommend using that term?
So I covered NIMBY in my presentation, and it just simply refers to like an attitude that that has like come across in my research personally, that many residents in Sonoma County kind of like have towards homelessness and encampments. So yeah, it simply just refers to the attitude. I don't think like it's any word that should be controversial. It's just from what me and my team found.
Here's an interesting, oh, go ahead, Matt.
I was going to say, I've had some experience because NIMBY to me is one of the most fascinating barriers to all of this. Typically, you can find money. The issue is finding property. Where are you going to put the homeless encampment? Where are you going to set up these facilities? And NIMBY is always a concern because wherever you set these facilities and services up, the chances of you having somebody that objects to it has to be near 100%. So NIMBY is like in the presentation, it was a really good presentation. It's something that you got to get out ahead of, by education, trying to educate the public and explain to them that getting out in front of this, setting it up here in the end will be better. But not in my backyard is a very real thing. And I don't think it's a very derogative term necessarily, but it's always a consideration for establishing services.
So this question comes from something on Lauren Williams' slide, but anybody can answer this. It's you mentioned that the importance of understanding and being educated on homelessness and politics on the local level. So what would be some problems or challenges that could occur if you were making generalizations across communities and areas, weren't looking quite as much on the local level?
So it was something that I found when I first was starting. I thought more big, like just the California government. And I thought, oh, why isn't the whole state not doing something about this like problem? Why are we not creating great solutions? Why are we not talking to each other? And I found that if it's more complex than you actually think it is. So it's more breaking it down to where they leave this their solutions more to the local level, like to the cities that it comes to, because every city deals with the issue of homelessness differently. So they just let it up. They leave it up to more the local government and to the councils within this government to figure out what solution is best for them.
So we are almost out of time, but I really like this question that Suzanne posed. I'm going to ask you real quickly. I've heard that Rising Waters is a project where the structure and outline may be used for future SSU projects. What advice do you have to students running future projects? And I like that. Any advice for students who want to get involved in things like this in the future? Anything from how to get involved to how to best approach it, or maybe why it's a good experience to have?
I would say that it's definitely a good experience because it brings you into something that maybe we not ignore, but like it's in the back, or we drive by where I live, we drive by homeless people almost every day and stuff, but knowing more about them and actually trying to solve something, like let's find a permanent solution. What can I do as one person or with a group, a team, or our school? How can we change that? And I think it's just going into it, wanting change and just sharing your perspective, bringing awareness to a certain situation that you think would be for the better of everybody.
Does anybody have one more response to that before I wrap up here?
I would say try to find a project you're already interested in. When we did our administration program, homelessness was something I was interested in, so all my projects aligned with it, and that made researching that project so much easier. So, if you can find something you're already passionate about, then these projects are very rewarding and very easy. It's easy to find motivation on something you're interested in.
Wow. Well, thank you very much to our student researchers and to everyone in the audience for being here today. We had really great questions. A lot of them were direct messages to me, so you were shy, but I thought it was great the way it worked out. And also a big thank you to Sonoma Water for funding this work, to our steering committee of experts from around the county, and all the people behind the scenes who made this possible. This event was recorded, and these student videos are actually available to view individually on the SSU Virtual Research Gallery if you'd like to see them there. So in the chat, I am putting several links, and here's what I have for you. First is my contact email, then the webpage for the Virtual Research Gallery I just mentioned, information about Rising Waters and the larger Waters Collaborative that's between the center and Sonoma Water, the Sonoma Water website, center events and past recordings, and a link to our last event of the semester taking place on May 13th called Live from the Field, Impacts of Field Research on Society. That event is part of the Virtual Field, which is an NSF-funded project designed to give undergraduate students opportunities to connect with field researchers and experiences around the globe during the pandemic. So if you're an instructor, please consider bringing your classes on the 13th, and it's also open to the public. So next week, we will send you an email with answers to any of the questions we didn't get to, and web links I just mentioned, and a link to the recording of the event. So please feel free to reach out to me with questions or feedback. Thank you again. We hope to see you all again soon. Stay safe. Have a great rest of your weekend. And if all of the students could quickly wave a goodbye, be a great see you later.
And
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you to all the panelists, and thank you for your hard work. It is appreciated by more people than you know.
Thank you for that comment. Take care, everybody.